Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this month's Firefighter Book Club. We are going to be hanging out with Murphy Arsenaux and Nick Joyner, and we're going to be talking about the Firehouse Mentor. It's actually Murph's second book. He actually did a previous one. I don't know what suckered him into writing a second one, probably Nick. But we're going to be discussing that today. I want to kind of prepare everybody. We're working on the 2022 book club list right now. I just finished up my station bid, so I know what my calendar is going to look like next year. So I'm going to start getting the schedule done, and the book list will come out. So if you have any suggestions for the 2022 book club list, authors that I can get a hold of and that want to hang out with me, don't get too crazy. But like I said, I did set it up with John Norman for this next year, Rick Lasky, Richard Gassaway. So we already started a great lineup. The hard part about the Firefighter Book Club is every month I'm trying to read a book, and I'm also cramming in other ones that I want to read on top of it. No offense, Murph. But I just started reading this one by Randy Kern, taking the conflict or the heat out of your conflict for company officers. It kind of aligns with my book, so it's one of those ones that I'm reading to kind of look at that. I know Randy pretty well, so I'll see if I can call him, see if he's interested in coming on. So that might be an option for us too. And as far as my book, it's 5 years in the making now. November 20th, I think, is when I started it 5 years ago. And I'm proud to say I got 10 more pages left, I think is probably where I'm sitting. And it will be done. It'll go back to Penwell, and then they can tear it apart. So, yeah, hopefully next year sometime we'll get to see my book come out as well. But let's get started today. And like I said, I'm going to turn it over to Murph and Nick. Say hi to the group.
Hi, guys. This is I'm Murphy, and this is Nick. I don't know if they got the names underneath.
That probably would have been like your pictures are on the back of the book, so I just wanted to make sure like which one is which. I don't know which one I'm looking at, but yeah, that's a good start. I didn't think of it that way. So yeah, let's I kind of threw it out there, right? Murph, this is your second book. What was the timeline between the first one and the second book that you wrote?
About 2 years.
Okay. So let's talk about your first book, right? And I have that one here. I'm hoping that all of you guys in the book club that are actually doing this, you picked up Firehouse Mentor and you knew, hey, look, there's another one out there. So this, the company of leaders, what are some of the things that you cover in that before we get into the second?
Basically, what it really, just to boil it down, it encourages young firefighters to understand the influences around them and to be able to weed through to make the right choices and to lead themselves well. Now, that's just it in a nutshell. What actually got me started doing it was Nick had got assigned to me, and I say this in the book, probably 10 years ago, and I was at I felt complacent part in my career. You know, I just kind of let things go a little bit. And when Nick got assigned to me, I was like, you know, I gotta up my game, get back into it. I gotta snap myself out of this, right? And so that happened, and you know, we started working together. Well, after so many years, I had talked about retiring. And so Nick tells me, man, why don't you write down all the stuff that you taught me and taught us, you know, for like a PowerPoint, something, you know, just at our local department. And I started writing stuff down and just some of the stuff from my time in New Orleans and St. George. And it was just so much material, Jesse. It was like, this is bigger than a PowerPoint. And so I ended up putting it in book form, and it just went quick. I mean, I just, you know, went to a publisher and they loved it and picked up on it. And so I actually got to meet with Nick Brunacini, and he read the book and he liked it, endorsed it. And in fact, that's how I started writing for his Be Shifter magazine, is when after he read that, he had asked me about that. So I never set out really to write a book. It was just something local to help, you know, the guys in our department. and some of the things we were doing with leadership forums, getting different companies together on a Sunday, because we trained in hose and ladders and blah, blah, blah. We did all SOPs, but there was zero training in real leadership. And I'm not talking about holding a position title leadership, but actual leading yourself. In other words, understanding the influences around you and making the correct choices. So we started doing, with my chief had asked me, that's why I didn't retire. I was going to, the book comes out, and my chief asks me to put together these leadership forums. And I did, and we started doing them where on Sunday, which is normally not a whole lot of training going on, we would get as many companies volunteer to come, and then we would sit down and we'd go over different things about real leadership.
Right.
And that included influences, who's influencing you, who you're influencing. And we went through the, thought, action, habit, character, destiny, where, how you think determines how you act, actions over time, develop habits. Those habits, good or bad, determine our character. And of course, good or bad character will lead to a desirable or an undesirable outcome, a destiny. And so we started doing that, and it was voluntary, and we had one or two companies at the most, engine companies. So we got 6 or 8 guys. And then before long, we were having to do 2 sessions on Sunday with 4 companies each in the 2 sessions, which is about 80% of the department on that shift. And it just kept continuing to grow. And so I ended up not retiring because my chief was like, I want you to finish this before you go. So needless to say, we got all of that done, and we got the different forums and different people talking. And I have to say, which one of the good things about it, and Nick can attest to, is that the younger firefighters, as a company, are sitting down listening to this, and they may not have, good leadership skills, or a lot of them would tell me, man, I didn't see things like this. I didn't realize this. And so the younger guys really liked it because their officers are sitting there, and some of the officers were like, man, I got to change the way I'm doing stuff. I had one guy say, man, I never had a good example in the fire service. I didn't have good examples at all. And he was like, now I realize I fell into those bad examples, and I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so it helped some of the older guys, that were willing to admit, hey, because I was there once, I had some bad negative influences in my career as a young firefighter, and even Nick.
Yeah.
And you can talk about, Al played a big part in his career, because he started, St. George is a melting pot. It's grown so fast that we have firefighters from pretty much almost every department in the state have come to St. George because as it was growing, and it has a strong tax base, so the pay is really good. But that being said, we got guys from all over, and there's like a million different ways to skin a cat, and we had to come up with our own thing. And so, Nick came from Abbeville Fire Department, and he came with strong leadership skills too. And so that's partly, what inspired me to co-author him, because he inspired me to write the first book. And then in turn, I was like, man, we need to write it together, because he's got good material too. He's, he's not a new guy in the fire department. He's got almost ready to retire himself.
Yeah, I was blessed with some a couple of really good captains in my career. Murphy, one of them, and my first captain was Alan Abear, and he was from the first day. He kind of took me under his wing, and we trained together. And he had routines that he set up for me to follow every day, and we had to follow those routines. And he was right there with me for the whole thing. He wasn't just like telling me, do this, I'll go over here and relax while you do that. He was right there. While I was reading, he sat there and he read too. And then we talked about what we read after that. And we went outside and trained. I had bunker gear on. He had bunker gear on. He saw that I needed to put some muscle on. I was kind of skinny back then. I was a young kid, and he had a workout program that we went out there and we worked out every day. And he was just, you know, he was the best, man. He taught me a lot about life and life in the fire service. And he really put me on the right path in the beginning. And then years and years down the line, I end up with Murphy. And Murphy's teaching me about leadership and how to be a good officer, and you know, how to stay in the range of a really good reputation, and how to carry yourself, and how to do things in a way to get things done, and not to treat people wrong, and not to disrespect yourself with some of the things you do. And I thought that was really incredible. And I hated the fact that he was going to be retiring and taking all of that knowledge and wisdom. And it was, in my mind, it was just going to go away whenever he retired. So you know, we would work out every day together, and we would walk during our workouts, and we would talk the whole time. And, you know, I kind of kept telling him, you got to do something with this wealth of knowledge that you have. And he started writing it down and getting it ready for, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking he has to do something to where his legacy is going to go on years and years after him. You know, it's no telling how long it can go on now that he's written the books, and it's going to be more and more coming out with videos. And I'm thinking he's going to do some public speaking, and this stuff is going to last forever. It could last for 200 years. So his wisdom and knowledge will last forever now. And I think that's pretty awesome, because people need what he has in there.
Right. Well, and it's one of those things, like when I first pick up a book and I'm reading that, any book that makes me want to come and choke you out a little bit, because it's showing me my complacency. You know, if I'm going to rate it on Rotten Tomatoes on my scale, I'm like, I don't like this book because it's making me feel bad. We all get complacent. And I know that there's some stuff even in this book, I'm like, I got to do better with that. I can do more of that. And I've been a captain now for almost 16 years, and I see that too. I can't imagine Murphy can talk the entire walk with you, but I know he can. So now you talk about it in the book, right, with the complacency, and Murph, you're talking about how you weren't really understanding that you were being complacent. But really, I'm going to turn it over to Nick one more time. Nick, you came into the St. George at that point as a firefighter, kind of like your third department, right? And you get assigned. Was Murph your first captain coming to St. George?
No, he was not. He was my second captain.
Okay. So did you see that Murphy was complacent as he's talking about?
I never saw that, because I think from day one, he wanted to make an impression on me. And I never saw that. I didn't even know until a few years ago when he told that to me, because I didn't know. I didn't know him before he was my captain. I might have saw him twice in the department, and I really didn't know anything about him.
And you were advised not to come to me.
Yeah, I had guys telling me I should try to get with another station or get assigned to a different truck, because I wasn't going to fit well with Murphy and stuff like that. But I mean, after working with him for a few days, I noticed that this is the perfect place for me. He was energetic. He was always ready to train, and from day one, he was teaching me things about being an officer. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not close to being an officer here yet. I don't know why he's teaching me this stuff. But it was like building blocks, little by little. And then when I finally became an officer, the transition was so easy. I was kind of blown away thinking back to the first lessons I got from Murphy. And I had to call him and thank him, because it was just so easy of a transition. And I'm seeing other guys that get moved into that position and they still having to learn so much, and they coming to me and asking me questions, and they telling me, "You lucky you got to work with Murphy. Murphy taught you stuff all the time. We didn't have that." So you know, it was a blessing. He had it was like he had a plan. He had a vision from day one. I never even saw him as being complacent.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Murphy, was it one of those things that you just said, look, I got Nick coming to me and he's a ball of fire and I need to kind of step up my game a little bit?
I didn't even know who Nick was. I had never worked with him before. I really didn't. I just knew. And for some of the guys that are listening, and the young guys, and maybe some of the older guys, in my career, I had always tried to put my best foot forward and do the best. That creates enemies. Now, the dynamic is, I came from New Orleans Fire Department, 15 years over there. I was a captain the last 5 years. And then a department that was over 800 and something people when I left. I come to St. George because they were growing and they needed officers with experience. But that created some dynamics that I wasn't ready for, meaning a lot of jealousy because these guys from New Orleans, they taking our rank, they taking our positions there, you know, and so the guys that were there was some issues. Here I am, 35 years old, I was blind to all of that. And so I let the slanderers affect me. And I got to the point where I was like, man, you know what the hell with it? I'm just staying in my hole over here. I'm gonna do my time and get out. And I had gotten to a point where I was complacent. But what it is I allowed others to influence my behavior instead of taking command of myself. And I had gotten like that. And I had an older guy with me that came from New Orleans. He was with me too on my company. And then we had this, I forget where this other guy came from, because we were running with 3 at the time. So I allowed the negative influences and the slanderers, and I just let it affect me. And I became complacent. I got to the point where, you know what, the hell with this, I'm done. And I know many firefighters have been there. But then when he came, I was like, man, this is a new guy. My conscience kicks in, right? I don't want to do this to him. You know, I knew these other 2 guys. I knew him. We had a history together, but I didn't know him from nothing. So when he came, I said, you know what? I got to pick my big boy pants up, pick myself up, and really get back in the game. And so when he came, that's why he probably never saw it. But yeah, I mean, I had gotten to the point where I let the politics, all of the other garbage of the job completely derail me. And, you know, I would say to people that are there, because I was asked by a captain a while back, how do you do it? How do you keep moving forward when you're being slammed? And my response to that was, I don't focus on headquarters. I don't have anything against headquarters. Headquarters and labor will never get along totally. I understand that. They're going to do things I don't agree with, but I'm not in charge. So I can't really. So what I do is I focus on my crew. That's what keeps me going. It's not that I deny everything that's happening that I don't agree with at headquarters, whether it's, you know, forced vaccines or whatever the problem is that you don't agree with. I have to focus on my crew and lead by example and inspire them to love the job, not hate the job. Because the job isn't really out there at administration. The job is out in the field helping the people. And so if we can keep focused on that and still love that and be encouraged to do that and be encouraged and be more professional about it, learn more about it, you know, that was the path that I wanted to take. And so it was a decision I had to make to get out of that slump and just go, yeah, I got a new guy. I don't want I don't want the things that happen to me to taint him. Those are things I got to deal with. And so that's where he comes in the picture. He sees me and he's saying totally different. Well, I didn't become complacent. Well, I wasn't going to let him see that. But I did tell him that because in the training, I wanted him to know there's going to be times in everybody's career, because we're human, that whatever it is, personal issues at home. I mean, I have an autistic son. That was kind of weighing on me too. And, you know, so I have all of this stuff going on, and that can happen to any of us. And we get complacent before we even realize it. And that was part of the book, was to help people not to get to that point. Or if they're in that spot, think about it. What got you there? How are you going to get out? Yeah, that's mainly the first book was talking about that. So,
yeah. And I get it. I've done it, and I've had probationary firefighters come in and kind of rattle me out of that cage a little bit too. So I understand how that works. So getting into now Firehouse Mentor, as you go along, you started having the coffee table kind of setting. How did that come about?
Nick, you want to answer that?
Well, the coffee
Because he did it with me.
Yeah, the coffee house stuff was, we had a rookie academy that had just finished up, and now these rookies, they get assigned to different stations. They get assigned to different truck companies, and some of them end up with captains that they get out there and they train with them, and you know that these captains have a somewhat positive attitude. So those firefighters, they'll probably end up being okay. But then some of them end up at the opposite. They end up at stations with negative captains, disgruntled captains, or complacent captains that they might be kind of upset that they have a rookie firefighter now, and they don't want to do stuff with them. So they're upset about it. Why they have to send me this young guy? Now I got to go out there and teach him stuff. Why didn't they teach him everything in the rookie academy? And, you know, we knew that some of these guys needed a different perspective. They needed a different view. And we wanted to try to provide that for them. And Murphy came up with the meeting up with him at a coffee house and just talking about some of this leadership stuff and leading yourself well and not letting yourself get sucked into the negative influence and becoming that. So that's how that started. And we just started inviting some of these rookie firefighters to come out and meet with us. And, you know, some of them would come, some of them wouldn't come because they might have mentioned it to their crew or their captain, and they might have said, "What you gonna meet up with them for? That's
a bunch of bull.
They're not gonna teach you nothing." And you know, that stopped some of them, but they wound up coming after, and they felt bad about not coming before. And that's, you know, they told us that their captains told them that stuff.
Right. They started learning, and they were like, "Man, I'm glad I'm coming, man."
Yeah.
And they told us that their captains told them not to come.
Yeah.
And the reason we did it at the coffee house is because you ever sit in a firehouse and you try to do that, and the negative influences go, "Oh, that's bull. Don't listen to that." And so we were like, we got to get out of the firehouse and get away from it. We get in a coffee house. It's a neutral zone, and we can discuss this without the negative influences around. And it was exciting. I mean, we had a good time, and it was, for an old guy, I was like, I'm reliving my youth, because remember when I first got on and we're talking to these young guys, and yeah, so it was really fun. But we were kind of making it up as we went.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's how Firehouse Mentor came about, is because we started putting it in a format. And then we would sit down with them and we'd go through these icebreaker questions. And we were like, we didn't call them that at the time. We didn't know. We were just throwing stuff out there. And, you know, Nick came up with, you know, did you order something? Because it's here. And you can tell them about that. But
yeah, it's kind of like whenever something happens in your life, if I don't know, if you get wrote up for coming in late, it's probably because you had a habit that led up to you finally showing up late for work. You might have one alarm clock that don't have a battery backup, or you might always push the limit and show up 5 minutes before you have to be there, and eventually it's gonna come. So it's kind of like the same process of ordering something online. You go through a process. You first you think about it, and then you look for it, and then you find it, and you got to enter your credit card information, and then it shows up at your door. It don't just magically show up at your door like, oh, I didn't even think I needed this, and it showed up. So whenever something bad shows up, most of the time in your life is because you went through a process that led up to whatever you ordered finally showed up. Now you have it. And some people lose their jobs. Any of this stuff, it don't just randomly happen. It happens because of reasons that led up to that.
Yeah. And then you bought it. You own it.
So, yeah, it's yours.
So one of the things in the book that you get into, and I see the Billy G influence in there, right? The calling 912, right? Some guys don't understand what that means, but let's talk about the 912.
Well, think about it. When people call 911, they're not calling for some guys that might be able to fix the problem, or some guys that might show up today, or they might show up later. We don't know when they're going to show up. They calling for the best. They calling because, okay, we have a problem and we need the problem fixed. If I call this number, the problem 100% should get fixed. So when we show up, if we hadn't been training on hose line deployments, or we hadn't been training on deploying ladders, and something happens, something bad happens, there's no second option. We the one and only option. So when they call for that option, we need to be ready. We need to be 100% ready to get that ladder up, to get that person out of that window. We need to be ready to get that attack line in that door and put the fire out before it burns the whole house down. Or, we need to be ready for extrication. All of this stuff, we have to be ready for it. And the only way to be ready is to make sure that you're ready every day by exercising and trying to eat right, and not having bad health to where you can't move the way that you should be able to move. And get out there and train, throw those ladders and pull those lines, and just get yourself ready for that. Because when they call 911, they need the best. And I feel bad that we're not the best all the time, because some people don't feel that way. They just treat it like a job, and I'll show up and I'll eat what I want to eat, and I don't want to do anything if we don't have to run a call, and I'll just sit right here in this recliner and relax as much as I can. And you get out of shape, and you get slow, you lose your skills, and you just end up not the best.
Mediocre.
Yeah. And who wants, if somebody calls 911, they don't call and say, hey, can you send me those mediocre guys?
Yeah.
See if they can maybe help out over here.
Yeah, get those boobs and those turds. I need some.
Yeah.
And I'm not picking on boobs and turds, because if you are, you can always decide to change. And that's the good thing about all of this, and the 912 and some of that stuff came because we know personally guys that are so grossly out of shape that we were at a fire, we pull up, this other company, us, the captain gets off, who's about 150 pounds overweight, makes it to the front door, and he's exhausted. All he did was, him and his crew pulled a line, and that was it. He was spent. Him and his firefighter looks just like him. They were done. That's a whole company that's completely taken out of the mix. They're not good. They're in rehab after the first 2 minutes on the scene. That's disgraceful.
Yeah.
That can't happen. And what that does, and you know this, Jesse, and guys out there, y'all know this, that can get other people hurt.
Yeah.
And that's not looking out for the brothers. Now, I'm not dogging a guy that's overweight. Man, you can look, there's many things you can get out there to do to start losing weight. But you have to be committed to doing it and not just interested in doing it. And there's a difference.
I had two people on one crew tell me one time, we were talking about high-rise firefighting, and I was talking about all of the stuff that you have to bring up these stairs to just to get ready before you even go in to fight the fire. And one of the guys said, if I had to carry all that stuff up those stairs with my bunker gear on, I would probably die. And the guy sitting right next to him, he laughed and he said, yeah, me too. I hope I never have to do that. So I didn't say anything because I was kind of blown away. But I'm thinking, what if every firefighter was like that? What if those guys for 9/11? What if they were like that? Nobody would have went up those stairs. Nobody would have saved people out of those buildings. And think of how many high-rise fires happen in America. If the firefighters couldn't do it's doing your job. How can you have a job and sit there and laugh about not being able to do with it when it deals with life and death? That's
hence 912.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people out there that can't do the job, so you have to call 912. And obviously it stands out in your head. 912, it's to make you think, can I really do 911? Can I really do it? Or do I have to make some personal changes in my life to be able to do this? Because for some, retirement's not an option. They have they got 10, 15 years to go. They can't. You know, if you're old enough and you can go, the heck with that, I'm retiring and go eat my bonbons all day. That's great. More power to you. But there's a lot of guys that aren't at that stage.
Yeah.
And they can't do the job. They think they can. If you ask them, they would tell you, yeah, but time and time again, they fail, and we see it.
Well, probably the hard part for you out there is you got fantastic food out there, so it's probably very difficult.
That is a huge
Well, and go back to like you shop, right? And it shows up. Well, in today's society, everybody is so used to being able to get online and shop around and get the best price, get the best product, all those types of things. But like you guys said, they don't have a choice. When they call 911, there's not another option, to call the B team, or call B shift instead of A shift. Although, Nick Bernasini will tell you maybe don't call B shift, but but yeah, you want to put your best foot forward and be prepared to do that job, because they are calling you in the time of need. One of my favorite parts in the book was, what would you do for $1 million? And that really made me think, like, hey, if I gave you $1 million, actually $2 million, the way that you guys broke it down, over 30 years installments, just like the lottery does, would you at least wash the truck? Would you at least go out and train? I thought that was that really opened my eyes to a lot.
Yeah. And that came about because we all sit around a table joking, and of course it's usually vulgar. It's usually, what would you do for $1 million? Well, give me $10 worth, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And we thought about that, well, man, over your career, you're going to make that much money.
Yeah.
And like you said, the lottery, they're going to give you installments. So it is. I mean, what would you do? So that's why we put it in there, to talk to these young guys and say, hey, you're really going to make decent money in the fire service. You're not going to be a poor man all your life, unless you spend more than you make, obviously. But it kind of hit home, so I was glad it hit you as well.
I thought it was great. And in California, they're making a lot more than that. I can tell you that. And they're still not a truck. So, it amazes me. Like, I'll tell my firefighters, like, look, when it all comes down to it, you got a pretty good job. You make pretty good money. You get to play a little Xbox here and there, or take a nap, or, go work out. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't get paid to work out on duty or, at their job, when it all comes down to it. What do I really need out of you? Okay, some chores around the house just to keep your house clean. Check out the engine that's going to protect you and save your life and do what it needs to do. A couple hours of training. It's really not that hard,
No. It's not. And the analogy Nick had come up with is one day he was looking at, it was a brand new ladder truck we got. And he's like, man, suppose the ladder didn't work. We would be up in arms. We'd want to call the union, file a grievance. I'm not riding that truck. The ladder don't work. How many of us don't work because we're out of shape or we don't train but yet we'll be the first ones to fight because they put us on this ladder truck and things are broken on it.
Yeah.
Headquarters needs to fix that.
Yeah, this truck needs to be taken out of service.
Yeah, take it out of service.
I can't believe they still have us riding on this piece of junk.
Right.
But I mean,
turn that around.
And I hate to say it, but sometimes I think like, well, it's a piece of junk riding inside a piece of junk. It's no difference there. So I don't know why. The worst thing in the world to me is to show up and either not know what to do or not have the right equipment or not even know where your equipment is. And you can't do the job the way that you're supposed to. And all that's from is a lack of being prepared.
Yeah. And Jesse, we're not talking about perfection. Perfection is all about me. It's all about me, the individual. I'm perfect. Everything's got to be my way. What we're talking about is a spirit of excellence, because excellence is focused on others. It's focused on the team. I'm doing my best, not your best, not Jesse's best. I'm doing my best because I want to see the team move forward. I'm going to do my part. And that's, to me, what excellence is. That means perfection, you're going to make mistakes. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. You'll never attain it. But if we focus on excellence and doing our best, there's going to be mistakes, and that's what we learn from. We're not talking about never making mistakes. That's going to happen. I think the officer that recognizes that will take and sit that firefighter down and say, hey, guys, I made a mistake. I should have did this, whatever. Or that firefighter knows he messed up. That captain's going to come and talk to him and say, hey, guys, I saw that. Let's try to tighten this up a little bit. Work with them instead of, because we've seen so many captains at critiques, and I don't even like to call it a critique because that don't sound right. You're being critical. But I've seen captains tear firefighters up. I've seen district chiefs or battalion chiefs tear a captain up because he didn't make the decision that he would have made had he been there. And so if the purpose is to tear people down in front of others, that's all about you. That's about your ego and about making yourself feel like you're better than everybody else. But if your purpose is to really correct wrong behavior, a lot of that will be done in private. You're not trying to humiliate, you're trying to help correct wrong behavior. So I would see, quite often you'll see it, captains, and I had this one guy tell me, that's the way I was brought up. I'm like, bro, what if you were brought up wrong? Do you like it being done to you? No. I said, well, what makes you think other people like it? I mean, that's an easy, if you don't like what's being done to you, certainly don't turn around and do it on somebody else. But we would see that a lot. And so those are what we call just patterns of wrong behavior. Those fall into the habits that develop bad character or develop a bad destiny. And so the first book, we talk about that, trying to get all the way back to it starts here. Everything starts here. But you have to be able to see it. You have to be able to take an honest look at yourself. And part of that is, what are some of the things you would like to see in a top-notch company? And then turn around and ask those questions of yourself. Am I doing that? Or am I hindering the team? And as an officer, I think the biggest thing you can do is be humble and go, hey guys, I've been messing up, man. I gotta get my behind gear. I guarantee you get more respect from people when you admit your faults than try to hide them. Because when you try to hide them, everybody knows, right?
Right.
Everybody knows. You're not fooling nobody. So, yeah.
Well, and you kind of brought up taking stuff in private and even that respect factor, respect for your employees and them having respect for you and respect for the rank. I think you guys talk in there a lot about respect for the rank. Even though they may not be acting like a captain or a chief, respecting the rank is still respect for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that, you let people bully you and walk all over you. I had a deputy chief came in who was known for bullying. And he came in my station and he made some off-color comment. I didn't say nothing. I followed him into the office. I shut the door. And respectfully, I said, Chief, if I've done something, by all means, discipline me. But do not talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. I'm not your son. He looked up. Oh, man, I'm sorry. You don't have to be a stepping stone for people to walk all over you. But there's a respectful way to talk to people and to chiefs. I mean, we address every chief as chief. Not because it's two parts. One is because it's respectful, but two, it reminds them of their accountability and responsibility. Every time I call you a chief, that should pop up. Oh, I'm a chief. I guess I should be doing this. It's twofold. So I call them chief. And look, we have good ones and bad ones. We got good captains, bad captains. I'm not saying it's all, upper management. It's not. But respect, and that's not earned respect. That's just basic human respect that you show people, which reflects your character, and what they do reflects theirs.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, Jesse, many times I wanted to say something. Oh, I did. Oh, I did. But I was just like, nope, that's his character. That ain't mine.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I find that the more you respect yourself and carry yourself in a respectable manner, and you respect others in that same way, it's easier for you to point out when somebody disrespects you, because you can tell them, hey, I felt like you disrespected me right there. And, I kind of don't appreciate that because I respect you. And something that simple sometimes makes people realize I was kind of disrespectful, and I'm sorry for that. So if, to me, that's the starting point. You have to respect yourself and carry yourself in a respectable manner.
Well, I think we're losing that in the fire service a little bit. And sometimes I think it's our fault, because as company officers and chief officers, we're continuing to push that out there. Don't call me captain, call me Jesse. And there's two sides of that. It's like the buddy to boss transition. I just had Chase Sargent on here last month. You got to have some of that in place, and you don't want to demand that respect. No, you will call me captain, right? It's just something that just happens over time as you're doing that. And Murph, like you, I went from one department where I was a captain before, and then went to a new department as a captain. And I noticed that a lot of the company officers there were younger, right? So they were on a first name basis with their crew. It wasn't captain, it was Jeff and Frank and all these types of things. But amazingly enough, as these young captains would be sitting around with me at a table, they would be referring to captains that had recently retired, and guess what they're calling them? Captain so-and-so and Captain so-and-so. And it's like, well, it's because you're just not comfortable with having your people call you captain, I think. And so when I first got there, they were like, we're very informal, but that was kind of a new change. It just became informal because all these young captains were there. So it was a small little adjustment. When I would make a phone call to a fire station and a firefighter would answer, instead of calling myself Jesse, I would just refer to, hey, how's it going, Joe? It's Captain Q. And I would just refer myself as that. And guess what happened? It was like, hey, Captain Q, how are you? Right? Instead of, hey, Jesse, and I think we're losing a lot of that in the fire service, that respect. And
you're right. It might be because some of these younger guys, they might feel like they are not fully ready to be a captain yet. I noticed that too sometimes, what you're talking about there. And I believe if you get yourself ready for that position, it won't matter to you that somebody calls you by that position name, because you got yourself ready for it. And now the fact that somebody's calling you that and you're not demanding it, it's kind of it kind of lets you know that you're there. And the fact that you respected yourself enough and you know that you're ready for that position, that just made people naturally call you that. And you refer to yourself as that because you respect that you have that position.
Well, another thing that I'll do, like when we do captains academies, we'll be doing like some employee counseling scenarios or whatever. And you can tell the ones that aren't prepared for that, because I'll come in and shake their hand. Hey, Captain Johnson, how are you? And they get this big grin on their face. And it's like, you mentally need to prepare to be called captain. Like,
Yeah.
you got to look like you've been there before. Like, yeah, they'll like, oh yeah, I've never been called that before. It's kind of weird.
And society's different. So the reason why it's like that today, I think, is it's like that in society. And so when, I'm revealing my age, but when I first came on, I would see district chiefs chewing out captains because they were fraternizing with the men. It's a total different world today.
Right.
And the captains were king. Captains ran them stations in New Orleans. They had a lot of power. And a lot of them didn't fraternize with the men. That was the captain. You dealt with the lieutenant. You didn't fool with the captain. And so as time goes on and, more disrespect for authority is we're seeing in our society, well, we don't just trust what people say. We challenge everything. Back in the day, they just, the captain said it, we're going to do it. So I see you having that. And I think, yes, we need to get back to a respectful thing. But I think when a captain sits down and he has a new crew or he's new to that crew, he has a discussion of expectations of what is expected of him as the officer. You'll have older guys going, I don't like being humiliated in front of people, or they'll come up with things that really tick them off in the past. And it all boils down to respect. And then the captain will come back after he finishes, and then he'll set his expectations. And whether he's comfortable with being called Jeff or he wants to be called captain, those expectations he sets out, and then he, as a leader, he hears, this is, I see, apparently the guy they had before me, you may know because maybe if you're in a small enough department, but sometimes when you got 900 and something guys, you get a promoted captain, you go in, right, you getting dumped in the middle of a crew that their old guy retired or transferred, and he left a hornet's nest for you.
Right.
So you get to deal with all the leftover baggage that this guy left. And then you need to sit down and talk with those guys and say, guys, it's going to be different. And you need to be the leader. You need to get up by example, and you need to do things. And you need to praise in public. And you need to discipline in private. Because I've heard that said, many guys, man, Murphy's always praising his guys, Well, there's a reason for that. I'm not looking to humiliate my crew. Is it that they're perfect? No. But praise in public, correct in private. That's going to change behavior. And so whether they call me Murphy or they call me Captain Murphy, they understand where I'm coming from. And they understand that I don't have any problems with being the captain. So if you're doing, and I had one guy, in fact, he ended up leaving, going to another fire department because he was getting ready to be suspended. And I thought he was doing really good. And then all of a sudden, he started making some bad decisions, and I had to hold him accountable. And I was called Murphy. Well, Murphy had to hold him accountable because Murphy was the captain. Right. And so you do have to understand that those dynamics exist. And if they call you by your first name and you're okay with that, that's fine. But you still have to be one who holds people accountable, because that's your position. And you have to make sure that the team is doing good and the team moving along, because if not, and you have one person breaking down, it starts affecting the other guys. You know, you get the guy comes in, I smell alcohol. Well, he doesn't appear to be drunk. I pull him in the office. I say, look, man, I smell it. I'm 5 feet away from you. You don't appear to be, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this is your warning. If you come in again smelling, you're going to be drug tested. So I would suggest if you have a bad night, you call in and tell him you're drunk, you can't come into work. Now he's going to have to hear, but he won't lose his job. He'll have to be disciplined. But that helped that guy out tremendously because he knew I wasn't going to just turn a blind eye to things. And he called me by my first name. And then sometimes he would call me Cap, and you know, he'd go back and forth. But he knew I was going to hold him accountable. And you know what he told me? That more than anything helped him to keep himself straight because he knew he was going to be held accountable. So that may have made that guy think different, which in turn changed his behavior, which in turn helped him not to come in and be on another job, or if he's driving, getting a wreck and he gets drug tested, he's gone. He's lost his career. And so when you care about people, sometimes you do have to hold them accountable. Is your purpose just to be the guy who gets everybody in trouble? No. If that is your purpose, you got it wrong. Your purpose is to help stem wrong behavior and help put them on the right path. That'll not get them fired 5 years down the road. Because when Jesse, you turn a blind eye, that's just going to keep getting worse. It's going to get worse. And you kick in the can, now it's somebody else's problem, and it's going to get worse. And that's not helping people. That's not caring about brother firefighters when you allow those kind of things just to keep festering and keep moving on. So as a captain, whether you're called by your first name or not, you still have to be accountable to making sure that things get done and the crew, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, And that's not being a hard ass or anything. It's just, that's the nature of the beast, and you have to do it, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about getting dropped in a hornet's nest from a company officer, that's one of the things that in my book and my teachings, I always talk about rekindles. If I come into your firehouse and I'm dealing with your rekindles, you owe me ice cream, just like out on the street. If there's
I was telling Nick about that.
Your employee fires, I want ice cream out of it. But yeah, and there's in your book, your guys' book, there's that chapter that gets into drugs and alcohol and things that'll get you fired. I think that our book, my book and the book that you guys wrote, there's a lot of similarities in that. Accountability is huge, and working through the process with those things, right, to completely extinguish the fire. So yeah, it's all good stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. We all go ahead.
No, yeah, I wanted to just kind of wrap up with brotherhood, because I think that's a lot of not only the mentorship you guys are talking about, getting to the coffee table and training the young recruits, and just mentoring. A lot of it comes down to brotherhood, and I think that that's where they're going to go hand in hand. And you talk about the mountains and the valley brotherhood, right? So kind of explain that.
Well, you want to explain it, or
the mountain and valley thing is kind of more your
well, you go to conferences, or maybe you go to a funeral, and we put on a big show, rightfully so. I mean, we have processions that are miles long. We have, and I call those mountaintop experiences, so to speak, because you see the brotherhood in action. You really do. People come together. You go to conferences and you talk to firefighters from, I don't know, China, and you find out that guy's as crazy as me. We're very similar. That's why we're here. And it's a good time, and you enjoy it. And man, you get to hear great speakers, and you're motivated, But at that time and at that height of motivation, that you're excited about it, there's no challenges. There's no challenges on the mountaintop, so to speak, when you're listening to a great motivational speaker. The challenge comes in when you get off the mountain and you go down in the valley where life is lived. And now you got challenges, and now you have to overcome those challenges to apply what that inspirational speaker told you. And in the valley, I think, is where we have the problems. brothers stabbing brothers in the back, you know, brothers allowing completely fireable behaviors to continue to just get bigger and bigger until the guy gets fired. And then we all act like we didn't know. And whoa, man, he messed up. You think a brother somewhere along the line could have went, hey, that's not right what you're doing, man. Let me show you where this road ends. And sometimes when people see where that road ends, they get off that road and they get on a new road. Not always. So I think when it comes to that and the slander from those who are, you're making us look bad because you train, and they bite you on the back when you're not looking, and they tear you up and they spread rumors and, blah, blah, blah. That's where I think the brotherhood really needs some help. I think that's where we're failing by and large in part, we're really dropping the ball in the valley. The mountaintop stuff is great. We are on top of it, man. It is awesome. But I just hear from so many different people that are getting chewed up.
Yeah.
And he knows. I mean, I tried counseling this one guy for years, and he just totally washed his hands. He's done. And what else can I tell him? Everything he says is, yeah, they stabbed you. They got you. I mean, what else? And this is a guy that's trying to do stuff. He's trying. And I think with a little bit of encouragement, I think with a little bit of camaraderie and brotherhood, that guy probably would have done anything for the fire department.
Yeah. Because what was getting to him the most, because I know who you're talking about, is the fact that he believes in brotherhood so much and so strongly to the point where it's just killing him inside to know that, okay, my brothers would make up false rumors about me. My brothers would stab me in the back like that and like
steal my ideas and say it's mine.
Put my
that kind of stuff.
Put my job at risk. Like I could be out on the street. I got a family to take care of, man. And you out there telling lies about me and stuff that can make me lose my job. And it's stuff like that. That's just, he thinks about it all the time. And I even tried to talk to this person, and I tried to tell him, sometimes you got to just stop thinking about that stuff and do what you have to do. Live your life the right way, do your job the right way, the way that it's supposed to be done. Just keep doing what's right, and all that stuff will go away. But if you keep thinking about it and you keep living in it, to me, that just perpetuates the whole thing. And like my daughter told me something the other day. She said, "Daddy, I have a riddle for you." I said, "Okay, what you got?" She said, "Imagine you're in a room with no doors and no windows. How do you get out?" I thought about it for a few seconds and I couldn't come up with anything. I said, I don't know. How would you get out? I think I'm stuck. She said, the way to get out is to stop imagining. So I was like, wow, that's true. She said that you didn't listen to the question. So to me, a lot of things in life are like that. If you just stop with what's going on in your mind and put yourself where you want to be in your mind, that's where you will be. And that's his situation, I believe. If he put himself in his mind where he wanted to be, he would be there.
Yeah. And the point is, bad things are going to happen. People are going to do things that, I mean, let's just put the fire services, we're one big family. Well, every family's got those, and they usually flare up at Christmas time, right? Every family's got them. Well, we have them in the fire service. We have those, they're not brothers. They don't act like it. They don't care. But that doesn't mean we can't try to make it better. That doesn't mean we can't create an atmosphere where guys start getting along. One of the things we did is when we get off on Saturday mornings, we started opening up. Hey guys, we're going to this coffee house. Well, first time, 5, 6, next 15. Before long, we filled the coffee house. And it's all guys off duty, because what happens is we're so busy with our fire department job, our part-time job, our third part-time job, and raising the families, and we don't have time outside of the firehouse to spend with each other. And we noticed, man, it was like people were starving for this, man. We started doing hang, and it really, to hang and just talk about stuff other than sitting at the firehouse and having a forced conversation, so to speak, whatever. And so that's what happened. And I think that's how, one of the ways you can rebuild it is in your department, start setting up. Hey guys, we're getting off tomorrow morning, Saturday or Sunday, whatever it is. We're going to be over at the coffee house. Yeah. And don't make it all morning, because then guys are going like, I ain't going next time, dude. They were here for 3 hours. Yeah. Right. Look, we're there for an hour. We get there at 7:15, 8:15, we out the door. Because and then guys go, oh yeah, I can do that, man. Because I got to get home, cut my grass or whatever. And so it's not a long drawn out thing. We get together, we hang out a little bit, laugh and joke. And they've had people in the coffee house make comments, and it's like positive stuff. And so that's part of trying to rebuild it, is really to getting to know each other. Yeah. Because when you don't know someone, it's easy to dismiss them. It's easy to slander them. It's easy to say stuff. It's easy to mock them. Yeah. But when you know that guy, that's my buddy. I ain't saying that. I ain't doing that.
What was good about that too is, a lot of times firefighters get together and drink. That's how it was in my younger days when I was younger in the fire service. We would get together and drink, and I think a lot of alcoholics were built through that. And I had an issue with alcohol back in the days. I got through it. I don't drink at all now. And to me, that coffee house thing was so great, because we got together, we got to unwind a little bit in a stress-free environment. We don't have to worry about the tones going off, and we can just hang out for a little while and talk and tell stories and laugh with each other with no alcohol involved. And when it's done, we finish up and we go home to our families, we go to our side jobs, and we got time to spend with each other and talk about stuff that sometimes you might not talk about that in the firehouse. I don't know. It's just another space to get together and build relationships and build that brotherhood, because that's what it comes from. It comes from knowing each other. And even though we know each other, I might not work at the same station with these guys. And if somebody tells me something about them, if it's a rumor, I might believe it because I don't really know them. But by talking with them and getting to know each other better, to me, that builds the brotherhood more, like that, minus alcohol and other stuff.
And it's not to say that every rumor is viciously started. And sometimes people just repeat stuff they hear, not thinking about it. But, the end result is you formed an opinion in your mind that may be on something that is totally not true. And then you get to meet these people and talk to them, and you're like, oh, yeah, you ain't like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's great stuff. I hope the book continues to spread out there, and hanging out with you guys. Having the ground rules set like you do every time you meet is huge. And Nick, I'll kind of wrap it up with this. From the mouths of babes, your daughter asking you the riddle. This will kind of literally wrap this up great. My daughter had a joke for me the other day, one of those dad jokes, and she says, "Dad, where does satisfaction come from?" And I said, "I don't know." She said, "The satisfactory."
Yeah.
You want satisfaction? Go out and make it. I think that's what it's all about.
That's good. That's a good one.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being on the Firefighter Book Club. And like I said, hopefully this spread.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later on.
All right. Bye-bye.